Hi, everyone. Welcome to Power Burst 43. Here we are, my wonderful friend Tara Gretton and Vicky Essebag, and we are here to talk about a subject that we've been thinking about and pondering over. And the question that we have today is how do we move away from reacting um, to our children to developing a relationship with them? So, what Tara and I were just talking about is that often parenting literature speaks to how we react to our children, right? We're having difficulties with our children or we're feeling challenged by them. And so here are some tips and tools that we can use to react in appropriate ways with our children. And we agree that this is incredibly important. And so absolutely, we need to know how to react. But what can happen is sometimes in those reactions, we can end up in power struggles with our young people, whether they be children or a little bit older, adolescents or teens. And power struggles can be very difficult. And sometimes, even if you have the best of tools, once you get into a power struggle, you can really struggle. And it doesn't always end well. And so, what we're talking about here today, Tara and I, is that there is the reactionary response that we need to think about. But we can also focus on another piece, which allows us to develop a productive and constructive relationship with our child so that we can effectively prevent entering into those potential power struggles. And what that is for us is conversation. How do we engage in conversation, productive conversation with our children to really help to resolve the issue even before it breaks down? So let's take, for example, the device, right? Whether it be a phone or a tablet. And our child is very tied to the phone or the tablet, as we know these days, right? So we can engage in a conversation to say, what is meaningful for you with your tablet? What does your tablet mean to you? What does your phone mean to you? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what would be a responsible use of your phone. How would that make sense for you? How would a responsible use of your phone make sense for you? What will make a difference to you when you are using your phone more responsibly, right? And how could we begin to start that even today?
Yeah.
How can we just begin? So, those are some of the thoughts we're having.
Yeah. And I just think that this is so important. And, I think, when you sort of said that often the literature is about that reaction, it's like, yes, it really, really is, and I think
Yeah.
if I had, having sort of, I'm doing this now and I have been doing for some years, but if I kind of go, I have my time again when my children were younger, I would be much more intentional. I'd really think about what my hopes were around how I hoped to interact with my children. And from that, as they got older, start to have these conversations, really early on, once they start
Yes.
being able to talk. This isn't only with adolescents, this is with, younger children. And I think it's seeing children and young people as resourceful and that we can have these conversations. We have the wonderful, opportunities to have one-to-one conversations with young people like this all the time, but seeing them as resourceful, asking questions. I was kind of thinking, maybe the language of being preventative rather than reactive is useful maybe for people to kind of grasp perhaps what we're talking about, but and you were saying to me about being constructive, and it is, we're being co-constructive. We can be intentional and co-construct, co-create, as you said, like how do we want to have these conversations? How do we want to manage these situations? How can we come up with this together? And, I suppose I would just invite parents and caregivers to just try it out, to start to ask the questions. And even if the children don't respond and they're like, what?
Right. Right. Yeah.
just to because sometimes parents will say, but they don't say anything. But it's just starting to kind of plant the seed of that way of conversing.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Well,
Yes, I thank you, Tara.
thank you.
And I really, what resonates with me there is the planting of the seed, right? We're not going to reinvent the wheel overnight. This is not something that we're going to try and change the world overnight, but we keep planting those seeds every day
Yeah,
and seeing the difference.
yeah, wonderful. Oh,
Thank you.
well, thanks everybody for listening. And Vicky, as always, lovely to see you. And we'll see you
Same
again.
here, Tara. Take care, everyone. Bye.